Lighthouse keeper did not blink. The wind was howling. Not a poetic whisper, but the roar of a arbid beast that made the thick windows of the Tevenek lighthouse vibrate. Adrian, 42, a former war reporter turned lighthouse keeper, did not blink. He knew this sound, this fury of the ocean beating against the Pointe du Raz. His face, weathered by salt and sun, bore the marks of a life spent tracking raw truths. Here he sought oblivion, the mechanical routine of the rotating light, the silence of men. That evening, the storm was of unheard-of violence. The sea, a chaos of foam and darkness, was swallowing the rocks. Adrian, posted at the lantern, his binoculars fixed on the unleashed horizon, was looking for any ships in distress. That was when he saw her, not an ethereal silhouette, but a red, torn mass smashed against the sharp reefs. An inflatable boat, or what was left of it. A body, a human form tossed by the waves, clinging desperately to the wreck. Adrian did not think. Instinct, the one that had helped him survive in conflict zones, took over. He pulled on his oilskins, his boots, and rushed down the 120 spiral stairs of the lighthouse. The wind slapped him. The icy water lashed at him. Every step was a fight against the elements. He reached the shore, where the waves were spitting out debris. The body was there, washed up, half submerged. A woman. Her dirty blonde hair clung to her face. Her clothes were in tatters. He grabbed her, his rough hands clutching her cold skin. She was heavy, inert. He dragged her, meter by meter, to the entrance of the lighthouse, then hoisted her, with unsuspected strength, to the small living room on the ground floor. In the raw light of the kerosene lamp, he examined her face. About 30 years old, fine features, but marked by fatigue and fear. He brushed her hair aside, checked her breathing, weak but steady. He removed her wet clothes, wrapped her in a dry blanket. He poured a little warm tea, which he let drip between her lips. She opened her eyes, 2 orbs of deep blue, ringed with black, which stared at him without blinking. No panic, just an animal vigilance. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice raspy, unaccustomed to soft words. She blinked, then whispered in a voice rasped by salt and cold, "Eleanor, I am fleeing." Adrian felt a shiver run down his spine. She was not a simple shipwreck victim. She was a soul on the run. Her past, a palpable shadow, was already floating in the confined air of the lighthouse. He should have alerted the Coast Guard, the village. But something stopped him. An echo of his own flight, of his own solitude. He saw in her a reflection, a shared wound. "You are safe here," he said, his voice softer than he thought it could be. "No one will find you." Eleanor did not answer. She just closed her eyes as if she were finally letting go. The lighthouse, his fortress, had become hers too. The vertigo of solitude had just found its echo in the tumult of a mad love, born of the storm and secrets. The following days, the storm persisted, cutting the lighthouse off from the rest of the world. Adrian and Eleanor were alone. The silence was heavy, sometimes broken by the crashing of waves or the creaking of the wind. Adrian took care of the lighthouse, checking the lamp, cleaning the windows. Eleanor often remained sitting by the window, eyes fixed on the gray sea, her face closed off. Adrian brought her simple meals, fish caught the day before, potatoes. She ate little, without appetite. One morning, as he handed her a cup of coffee, she finally spoke. "Thank you," she said, her voice low, a bit gravelly. It was the first word she had spoken since she woke up. "Are you feeling better?" Adrian asked, surprised by the sound of his own voice. He hadn't spoken to anyone but himself in months. "Yes," she replied. Then after a long silence, "I have to leave." Adrian put down the cup. "Where would you go? The sea is unleashed, and what are you fleeing?" The question was direct, without frills. He wasn't used to diplomacy. Eleanor hesitated. She looked at her hands, then at the ocean. "I saw things," she began, her voice hardening. "Things no one should see. I was a journalist, a war photographer. I covered conflicts, and one day I saw too much. They looked for me. I had to disappear." Her words were precise, each syllable like a hammer blow. Adrian listened, motionless. He recognized the same shadow in her eyes, the one he had seen in his own after his own reports. The same weariness, the same contained rage. "Who are they?" he asked. "Powerful men, arms dealers. I had proof, photos. They are lost now, with the boat." She paused. "They won't leave me alone. They will find me." "Not here," said Adrian, his voice firm. "Here, you are invisible. The lighthouse is my life. It can be yours too, as long as you want." He didn't know why he said that. He didn't know this woman. But he felt a raw connection, an urgency to protect her. Eleanor looked at him for a long moment, a look that weighed years of suffering. Then she nodded. Okay. It was a silent pact, sealed by the sound of the storm and shared solitude. The lighthouse, his fortress, had become their refuge. The vertigo of solitude had just found its echo in the tumult of a mad love, born of fear and protection. The weeks passed. The storm calmed down, but another more insidious one rumbled inside the lighthouse. Eleanor had become accustomed to the secluded life. She helped Adrian maintain the lantern, repair the nets. She learned the names of the rocks, the dangerous currents. But she never left the lighthouse without him. The fear of her past kept her a prisoner, and Adrian, without meaning to, reinforced this prison. Adrian had become possessive. Every time she looked at the sea with particular intensity, every time she remained silent for too long, he felt anxiety rise. "What are you thinking about?" he would ask, his voice harsher than he intended. "Do you want to leave?" Eleanor would reassure him, with a gesture, a word. "No, Adrien, I am fine here." But her eyes sometimes betrayed a deep melancholy. She was safe, yes, but she was also locked up. The walls of the lighthouse, which had protected her, were beginning to suffocate her. One day, a fishing boat approached the lighthouse. The captain, an old man Adrian knew, waved. Adrian replied, but hid Eleanor behind him. "No one must see you," he said, his voice low and urgent. "They could find you." Eleanor felt a pang in her heart. She understood the logic, but she also felt the deprivation. She had gone from one prison to another. The fear of the outside was replaced by the fear of the inside, the fear of Adrian's possessiveness. Their nights were feverish. Their bodies sought, found, and lost each other in a passionate embrace. Adrian wanted her entirely, absolutely. He whispered words of love to her, promises of eternity. But these words, as sweet as they were also chains. He could not conceive that she might have an existence outside of him. Thoughts that were not his, desires that did not converge toward him. Eleanor was torn. She loved Adrien, this raw and protective man who had saved her. But she also felt that this protection was becoming a cage. She had fled the violence of the world, only to find herself a prisoner of a love that consumed her. She saw the madness in his eyes, a madness that attracted and terrified her at the same time. One afternoon, as the sun finally pierced the clouds, Adrien, in a fit of despair, asked her to choose. "Me or the world, Eleanor. There is no room for both." His eyes burned with a dark fever. His face was pale. His hands were trembling. He was on the edge of the precipice, and he wanted to drag her with him, beyond reason. Eleanor looked at him. In her eyes there was no more sadness, but a cold determination. She knew this choice was impossible. She was trapped by this mad love, a love that, instead of freeing her, had locked her in a gilded cage, even more suffocating than her past. The vertigo of solitude had transformed into a vertigo for two, a shared vertigo, a deadly vertigo, between protection and imprisonment.